Welcome back. UFC Fight Night. Hernandez versus Rodrigues. Anthony Fluffy
Don't let me!
Hernandez enters the octagon looking to continue his rise through the middleweight division. Known for his relentless pressure, high-volume style, and nasty grappling, Hernandez is the kind of fighter who can make you work every second of the fight. Standing across from him is Gregory RoboCop
Dead or alive, you are coming with me.
Rodrigues, one of the most dangerous fighters in the division. Rodrigues brings serious power, aggressive striking, and a Brazilian jiu-jitsu game that can end the fight in an instant. Hernandez brings pressure and pace. Rodrigues brings power and finishing ability. Only one man is getting his hand raised. Before we get into it, do your part for the pack. Subscribe to the Husky Hustler. Anything can and will happen inside the octagon. So remember to stay husky. Let's get into it. In the women's strawweight division, we have Shanelle Dyer taking on Elise Reed. I think Dyer needs to make this uncomfortable for Reed from the start. She doesn't give Reed too much time to settle into her rhythm or allow her to dictate where the fight takes place. Dyer can put the pressure on, work her kicks and combinations, force Reed to fight while moving backwards. Particularly like Dyer's chances if she can get Reed backing towards the fence. That's where Dyer can start mixing up her attacks rather than just throwing punches. Kicks, knees, punches, and clinch work could all come into play. If Dyer can keep that pressure without getting reckless, I think she can gradually take control of the fight. For Reed, I'd like to see her keep this fight moving. She doesn't want to get caught standing in front of Dyer and allowing Dyer to build momentum. Reed needs to use her movement, pick her shots, and make Dyer miss when she comes forward. The longer Reed can keep Dyer chasing her, the more opportunities she'll have to counter. She also needs to be smart when Dyer gets close, because I don't think she wants to spend long periods trapped against the cage. If Reed can frustrate Dyer early and turn this into a technical striking fight, she has a good chance of making this much closer than people might expect. Reed's experience could definitely cause problems, but I think Dyer eventually finds her rhythm and starts landing the heavier, more damaging shots. Give me Shanelle Dyer by knockout. In the middleweight division, we have Jackson McVey taking on Wes Schultz. McVey's path this time is to use his size and grappling to make Schultz fight defensively. He can push him towards the cage, get him inside with some clinch work, and look to put him on his back. Once McVey gets a top position, I expect him to be much more dangerous than he is standing at range. The key for him is not getting caught in one of Schultz's submission traps while trying to force the action. Schultz has the experience of knowing exactly what it feels like to beat McVey, and that's valuable. He can use that confidence to stay relaxed during the grappling exchanges and look for the same sort of openings that were there in their first meeting. He's particularly dangerous when fights become scrappy, because a takedown attempt or scramble can suddenly turn into a submission opportunity. I think McVey gets his revenge. The bigger frame and improved MMA experience should help him control where the fight takes place. And I can see him eventually finding a finish. Give me Jackson McVey by submission. In the lightweight division, we have Gage Young taking on Stan Dorsainvil. I see Young having success if he treats this fight as he needs to gradually build rather than one he has to win in the first few minutes. He can use his movement and striking to keep Dorsainvil occupied, mix in wrestling. Once Dorsainvil starts concentrating on the punches, the more Young can make him defend different things, the easier it becomes to dictate the fight. Dorsainvil's opportunity comes when Young gets too comfortable. He needs to turn the fight into a series of uncomfortable exchanges and capitalize whenever Young gives him a chance to grapple. If he can force Young into extended scrambles, threaten submissions, and make him hesitate about throwing freely, suddenly the momentum can swing in his favor. I expect Young to have more success across the different phases, but I think Dorsainvil is capable of making him work for it. Over 3 rounds, Young's ability to mix things together should give him enough momentum to take the fight. Give me Gage Young by decision. In the featherweight division, we have Márcio Barbosa taking on Ryan Kuse. I think Barbosa should look to make this fast and aggressive fight. Doesn't need to overcompensate things. He can use his kicks to keep Kuse reacting, then start bringing his hands into the combinations. If he can back Kuse up, get him fighting off the fence, that's where I think Barbosa can really start putting the pressure on. He needs to mix in his attacks rather than simply hunting for one big punch. Kicks to the legs and body can open up the head, and once Kuse starts worrying about multiple weapons, Barbosa can start letting his hands go. If he gets into a rhythm early, I think this could become a very difficult fight for Kuse. Kuse needs to stay composed because I expect Barbosa to come after him early. The worst thing he can do is get caught standing directly in front of Barbosa and allow him to build confidence. Kuse needs to use his reach, keep Barbosa at the end of his punches, and make him work, get inside. If Barbosa starts rushing forward, Kuse needs to be ready to meet him with counters rather than getting drawn into a wild exchange. If Kuse can survive the early pressure, I think his chances improve considerably. He needs to make Barbosa second-guess himself, slow the pace down, turn this into a more technical fight. Kuse is making his UFC debut, while Barbosa is coming off a huge knockout win and already shown he can handle the UFC environment. I'm expecting Barbosa to start quickly, put Kuse under pressure, and eventually find the opening he needs. Give me Márcio Barbosa by knockout.
One hell of a fall from the top, look around, celebrities. They drop. Oh, it's a crazy world.
Next up in the lightweight division, we have Nasrat Haqparast taking on Chris Padilla. Nasrat's ideal fight is one where he gets to settle into his boxing. He can use his jab, work the body, and gradually put combinations together instead of chasing Chris around looking for one huge shot. If Chris is forced to respect the hands, Nasrat can start controlling the distance, making him pay whenever he steps into range. Chris has the opportunity to completely disrupt that plan. Rather than standing in front of Nasrat and giving him clean striking battle, he can mix up his attacks, change levels, and make Nasrat deal with him in the clinch and on the mat. Chris doesn't need to completely dominate any one area. He just needs to keep changing the questions Nasrat has to answer. For me, this fight is where experience and composure could really matter. Nasrat has been through plenty of high-level UFC fights. Expect him to be comfortable fighting at a measured pace. However, I think Padilla's ability to disrupt Nasrat's rhythm, make this a more unpredictable fight, be enough to get him over the line. Give me Chris Padilla by decision.
Stop your hesitating, 'cause you're my everything. No road to some.
In the heavyweight division, we have Shanelle Gaziev taking on Kennedy Nzechukwu. Shamil's route is pretty straightforward. Make Kennedy fight physically. He needs to get inside, force the clinch, make Kennedy carry his weight. If he can repeatedly put Kennedy on the fence, turn this into a grappling heavy fight, I think Shamil can absolutely break him down. He doesn't want to give Kennedy a clean, extended striking fight where Kennedy can settle into range. For Kennedy, the ideal fight looks completely different. He needs space. He needs to keep Shamil at the end of his punches, punish him every time he comes forward. The power, size becomes a major factor for Shamil. I can see Kennedy hurting him badly if Shamil gets reckless trying to close the distance. I think Kennedy's ability to create a fight-ending moment outweighs Shamil's ability to control the fight. Shamil also has been stopped in his last 2 UFC appearances, including a second-round loss in May, so I'm not convinced he can absorb Kennedy's best shots. Give me Kennedy Nzechukwu by knockout. Next, Jamall Evers taking on Lerryan Douglas in the featherweight division. For Emmers, I think the smartest thing he can do is make Douglas fight a complete MMA fight. He doesn't need to stand in the pocket. You have a firefight with someone who is very dangerous, and when he gets comfortable throwing his hands, Emmers can use his wrestling clinch game to disrupt Douglas, make him defend takedowns, push him towards the cage, force him to work. If Emmers doesn't get the finish on the ground, constantly making Douglas think about takedowns could open up opportunities for striking later. Douglas needs this at range and make Emmers pay for every attempt to close the distance. I don't think he should be chasing the knockout from the opening minute. If he can let Emmers come to him, stay patient and look for those big openings. If Emmers starts getting predictable with entries, that's when Douglas can really punish him. He has serious finishing ability, so Emmers can't afford to make many mistakes coming forward. Emmers could absolutely make this difficult by mixing in his wrestling, but I think Douglas is going to be dangerous enough on the feet that eventually Emmers won't be able to take those risks without getting caught. Give me Lerryan Douglas by knockout.
We're supposed to feel like sunshine. All we can do. We're supposed to feel like sunshine.
In the heavyweight division, we have 2 of the big boys going at it, with Anthony Wint taking on Terrance Chatman. This is the kind of heavyweight fight where one clean sequence can completely change everything. Wint's best chance is to make Chatman uncomfortable immediately. He can push the pace, close the distance, and force Chatman into exchanges before he has a chance to establish his timing. Once Wint gets him reacting, his power becomes a major problem. If he can back Chatman up, start landing combination, rather than looking for one perfect punch, I think the finish becomes very possible. Chatman doesn't need to match that aggression. In fact, I think the smarter approach is almost the opposite. He can stay patient, make Wint come to him, and look for opportunities as Wint enters. His leg kicks can also be important because they give Wint something else to think about. and could slow him down with forward movement. If Chatman survives the initial storm, starts finding Wint with counters, the fight could quickly become much more competitive. I'm leaning towards Wint because I think his explosiveness will be the biggest factor in the opening minutes. At heavyweight, I don't want to overcomplicate it. I think Wint eventually lands something that changes the fight. Give me Anthony Wint by knockout.
Got everything that I want, got everyone that I love, know that the feeling is right.
In the women's flyweight division, we have Carli Judice taking on Jeisla Chaves. Judice's path to victory is to make Chaves uncomfortable from the opening bell. I expect her to push the pace, throw in combinations, constantly make Chaves deal with something rather than letting her settle into her own striking rhythm. If Judice can mix in her attacks with clinch work and occasional takedowns, she can make this much more of a kickboxing match and rack up enough control time and volume to take rounds. For Chaves, I think patience is the key. Doesn't need to match Judice's pace. She needs to make Judice pay for coming forward. If she can stay composed, find her range and catch Judice during those entries, her power and timing can completely change the fight. I think Chaves is at her most dangerous when Judice gets a little too aggressive and turns this fight into a firefight. I'm leading Carl Judice. I think she'll be a busier fighter and have more ways to win minutes. I don't necessarily see her blowing Chaves away, though. Give me Carli Judice by decision. In the lightweight division, MarQuel Mederos taking on Mason Jones. Mederos needs to make this fight where Jones doesn't get comfortable. Expect him to be aggressive with his striking. Try and force Jones into exchanges rather than allowing him to dictate pace. If Mederos can hurt him early or create enough chaos to stop Jones from establishing his wrestling and pressure, the upset is very realistic. Jones has a different job. He doesn't need to chase the knockout. I think his best performance comes from constantly making Mederos work, mixing in his striking and grappling, clinching when necessary, and forcing Mederos to deal with multiple problems. This is actually one where I'm more comfortable picking the fighter who I think has more ways to win. Mederos can absolutely hurt Jones, but Jones doesn't need to give him that kind of fight. Give me Mason Jones by decision.
Legitimate. I don't really give a shit. Talking all that bullshit, but you never deliver it.
Up next in the light heavyweight division, we have Reinier taking on Roman Dolidze. This is a completely different physical equation at 205. Ritter, best route is obvious to me. Don't get dragged into prolonged boxing match. Get Dolidze thinking about the takedowns, force him into the clinch, and start chaining together trips, takedowns, and submission attempts. If Ritter can get his grappling going early, Dolidze could spend a lot of the fight defending rather than attacking. Dolidze's opportunity is to make Ritter regret every entry. He's physically strong and dangerous in close, the kind of power that means Ritter can't afford to get sloppy. If Dolidze can keep the fight standing, make Ritter work in the clinch without giving up his back or a dominant position, I think the fight becomes much more competitive. If Ritter gets tired from repeatedly trying to wrestle, Dolidze becomes incredibly dangerous. Ritter's move to 205 interests me because I think he's getting the bigger, fresher version of himself. It could make his grappling even more effective. Give me Ritter by submission. In the heavyweight division, we have Sergey Spivak taking on Victor Petrino. Spivak wants to get hold of Petrino. Once he can establish that clinch, expect him to work trips and takedowns, put Petrino on his back, make him defend rather than attack. Spivak have repeatedly shown that he can finish heavyweight fights through grappling, including submissions of Derek Lewis. Petrino's opportunity is to make this ugly for Spivak on the feet. He's moving into a fight where one clean heavyweight shot can completely change the night. If he can stay upright, force Spivak to enter from distance and make him pay for every attempted takedown, Petrino has the kind of power that can end this very quickly. I think Petrino's heavyweight power is going to be the difference. Spivak absolutely has the grappling route, but Petrino has already made the move to heavyweight. It is coming off a decision win over Stephen Asplund. If Spivak can't get him down constantly, I think he's going to have problems standing in front of him. Give me Victor Petrino by knockout.
We need a self-sufficient law enforcement robot.
How long will it take?
We can go to prototype within 90 days.
You're gonna be a bad mother.
This guy is really good.
RoboCop, what is he?
He's a cyborg, you idiot.
Let the woman go or there will be trouble.
Uphold the law.
RoboCop.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.
With the 5 centuries of penitentiary, so let the guilty hang. In the year of the boomerang.
Let's get into the main event. In the middleweight division, Anthony Fluffy Hernandez takes on Gregory RoboCop Rodrigues. Hernandez can win by doing what he does best, making Rodrigues fight an uncomfortable pace, constantly forcing grappling exchanges. I don't think Fluffy should be standing around trying to trade with RoboCop for 5 rounds. If he can close the distance, get his hands on him, push him towards the fence, and start chain wrestling takedowns, once Rodrigues is forced to carry that weight and defend repeatedly, Rodrigues can start looking for the back, mount, or submission, rather than just settling for top control. Fluffy doesn't need to submit him in the first round. He can spend the early parts of the fight making Rodrigues work, then capitalizing when an escape gets sloppy or Rodrigues gives up his back. Hernandez's relentless grappling can eventually create the opening. Rodrigues' path is more straightforward. Make Fluffy regret coming forward. He's got serious power, and Hernandez is going to have to enter the danger zone to get his wrestling going. If Rodrigues can hurt him early, force Hernandez to become more cautious, that completely changes the fight. He also can't allow Hernandez to get comfortable against the fence, because that's where I think Fluffy can start taking over. Anthony Hernandez versus Gregory Rodrigues, and the winner is...
You win!